Hello, just wanted to share some thoughts that I was having on politicians and divisiveness. I think it's a good point to make that our politicians, especially in New Zealand in an MMP sort of an environment, actually have a very, very strong incentive to create divisiveness, especially if you're talking about third parties, the minor parties, Greens, New Zealand First, and, those guys. A very good example is with Julianne Genter, the Minister for Women, not Minister for People, Minister for Women, Minister for Men don't matter, I suppose. Um, she wants to close the gender pay gap, which is about 8%, 9% or something in the public service. That is, create laws, pass them through that force women to be paid as much as men. And of course, the beating drum behind that, which justifies it, because it's the only way you can justify it, is the claim that the only reason why women are getting paid less than men is because there is some kind of patriarchy, not just a big institute bureaucracy, but a patriarchy bureaucracy that deliberately pays women less for no other reason than they can get away with it, and they're sexist or something like that. Well, this accusation, driven by the feminist movement going right back to the 70s, has been studied comprehensively many times over by many people. And when you normalize for other variables like, how much time you spent building up experience rather than going back home to take care of your children, and the priorities that people make in their lives, the different choices men and women tend to make, and you normalize for the amount of education you got and how much overtime you do and all those sort of other variables which are highly relevant, that gender pay gap disappears. Basically, a woman who does exactly what a man does, invests in their life, is just as likely, apparently maybe even more likely, just a little bit more likely, to achieve the exact same professional success and pay rates as men. The Greens have ignored all of that research. The only research they cite is the stuff which is spurious, that claims or validates what they want to believe. That is, it's all about sexism. I mean, ask any feminist or feminist organization about this issue, and it has to be sexism. It's the only way they will ever want to see it. And they will effectively, with their confirmation bias, look at no research, no claim, except the ones that validate what they want to believe. But the question is, why do the Greens want to believe this? That's the really important question. Now, don't fool yourself. For all professional politicians, their number one priority before anything else is their personal political survival. I mean, do you think Julianne Genter wants to go from a $150,000 a year job down to a $50,000 a year job? Not to mention all the other people in the now struggling Green Party. Thanks Miramar, using the C word. Not bright. Yeah. Well, of course they don't. And so we have to ask ourselves, where is the professional follow the money honey incentive behind this game of trying to pay all the women in the public sector just as much as men, and regardless of all the other natural variables, rather than just operating a truly non-sexist meritocracy and letting the chips fall wherever they will? Well, the Green Party must achieve political differentiation to keep its core critical relevance. And doing that, one way they can do that, and the way they are doing that, is basically bribing all the women who work in the public sector with a pay rise for nothing based on their gender. That's what it is. And it's very, very easy to do, to go up to a small minority and say, we're going to pay you off big time and force the majority to pay for that. And don't worry, girls, we'll just tell you what you want to hear. We'll tell you it's all about sexism. That's the only reason why you're not getting paid what you should be getting paid. And, you put the money on the table, people believe what they want to believe. Many of them will buy it and say, yeah, too right, give me more money. I'll believe that. That feels good. An 8% pay rise above others feels good. So yeah, you can see the incentive for the Green Party to create this divisiveness, to say to a group of society, you're being so treated unfairly. Vote for me and I'll get your money back for you. I'll use the government to do that. And that is what we're seeing. I think we're seeing a huge amount of divisiveness generated by political interests trying to chop up society into zones that have strikingly different interests, and then go targeting a particular zone, saying you are aggrieved, but don't worry, I'll solve your problems for you at everybody else's expense, and then they get their voter base that they so desperately need so they don't drop below that dreaded 5%. They secure their positions. It's all about that. It's all about consolidating a clear, strong voter base to keep them relevant. And that's especially the case for, I think, the Green Party and New Zealand First, because, well, National and Labour largely target the same broad central market. But these people are creating the divisiveness, and they have a very powerful incentive to do it. What do we do about that problem? The 100 days system, 100 days referendum system from Switzerland is probably the best thing we can do to employ to stop this kind of highly destructive special interest crony capitalism type effect, because it is actually crony capitalism, just through large groups, in the same way that perverse union influence on governments is crony capitalism, private interests hijacking government for their private gain rather than representing what is truly right. And I make another point I just want to add, that about where these apparent social compassionates are really at. Now, love or hate me, love or hate my ideas, what I think, one thing I can say for all my faults is that I am a social compassionate. I know my own kind. People who are truly on the job and give a damn, when your heart's in the right place, your mind follows. Real social compassionates are not raving activist types. They're serious, careful thinkers because they want to get to the bottom of things, understand things, because they want to find the real solutions that can really make a difference. They have a serious frame of mind because they truly give a damn. The screaming activist type that you can never have an honest conversation with, the kind that seems to think that you're the devil just because you don't agree with what they agree with, they are really just angry, frustrated children that want to kick and punch. Now, what's interesting with those sorts of people, that activist branch in our society, divisive activist branch, is, well, let me quote what Bob Jones, the very rich New Zealander, once said, who's been heavily involved with politics. He said with those sort of people, those activist types, that as soon as you pull out your checkbook and offer them some funding, I'll never forget him saying it because it's so obvious and so true, they roll over on their back, throw their paws into the air, and you basically own them as soon as you pull out the checkbook. Like spoilt children, as soon as you offer them a big whopping great load of chocolate ice cream, they calm down and they do exactly as they're told. And that kind of validates my point. Follow the money. Those screaming activist types, who's funding them? What's their incentive? Where's the money? That's where they're really at. They probably don't tell themselves that's where they're really at, but that is where they're really at, because they're not authentic social compassionates. I know that because I know my own kind. They're a bad joke. They're full of it. Well, they're children. That's all they are. Angry, frustrated, sometimes nasty children. And that's your Green Party. The screaming activist type. The spoilt brat screaming activists who want to be divisive, cut society up into sections, tell people that they're aggrieved, and secure their voter base to keep themselves in power, to keep that $150,000 check per annum coming through. Thank you.